In 2026, something unusual has been quietly unfolding across global food markets. It is not a dramatic collapse or a sudden disaster, but a slow tightening that people are beginning to notice in everyday life. Shelves that once carried rows of canned vegetables, beans, tuna, soups, and ready-to-eat meals are becoming less predictable. In some places they are partially stocked, in others certain items are missing for weeks at a time. Prices have crept upward, sometimes slowly enough that it feels normal, and sometimes sharply enough that shoppers pause before putting items in their carts. This is the emerging canned food shortage of 2026, and while it may not look like a traditional food crisis, it is reshaping how people think about storage, survival, and food security. The causes of this shortage are not rooted in a single failure. Instead, they come from a combination of pressures that have built up across multiple systems at the same time. One of the most important factors is the rising cost of packaging materials. Canned foods depend heavily on steel and aluminum, and both of these materials have become more expensive due to energy costs, mining constraints, and global industrial demand. When metal prices rise, food manufacturers face a difficult decision. They can either absorb the loss, which reduces their profit margins, or raise prices, which reduces demand. Many companies reduce production runs instead, focusing only on their highest-selling products. This leads to fewer varieties on shelves and a general sense of scarcity even when food is technically still being produced. Another pressure comes from global transportation systems. Canned food is heavy and takes up significant shipping space, which makes it more sensitive to fuel prices and logistics delays than lighter packaged goods. Over the past few years, shipping networks have faced continuous strain from labor shortages, port congestion, and fluctuating fuel costs. Even small disruptions ripple through the system. A delayed shipment of metal cans or raw agricultural goods can slow down production lines for weeks. When factories slow down, retailers feel the impact later, and by the time consumers notice empty shelves, the disruption has already been building for months upstream. Climate conditions are also playing a major role. Agriculture has become less predictable in many regions due to irregular rainfall patterns, heat waves, and shifting growing seasons. Crops that are commonly used in canned foods, such as tomatoes, corn, peas, and beans, are particularly sensitive to these changes. A weaker harvest in one major growing region can reduce supply for canning factories across multiple countries. Because canned food production depends on large, consistent volumes of crops at specific ripeness levels. Even moderate agricultural disruptions can lead to noticeable reductions in output. Unlike fresh food markets, where supply can adjust quickly, canned food production works in cycles that are harder to speed up or replace. At the same time, demand for canned food has increased steadily. In uncertain economic conditions, people tend to rely more on shelf-stable goods. Canned foods become a form of financial and practical security. Households buy them in bulk to prepare for price increases or supply disruptions. Retailers also increase their safety stock to avoid running out completely. Governments and humanitarian organizations maintain large reserves for emergency response. All of this combined demand puts additional pressure on already strained supply chains. Even a small increase in purchasing behavior can create a noticeable imbalance when production is already limited. There is also a psychological component to this demand. When consumers hear about shortages or inflation, they often respond by stocking up. This behavior is rational on an individual level, but creates collective pressure that worsens shortages in the short term. A product that might normally sit on a shelf for weeks can disappear in days if enough people decide to store extra supplies at home. Canned food is especially affected by this behavior because it is seen as one of the safest long-term storage options available to ordinary households. Despite these challenges, canned foods continue to hold a unique and essential place in global food systems, especially during times of hunger or instability. Their most important benefit is longevity. Properly sealed canned goods can last for years without refrigeration, making them one of the most reliable forms of food storage ever developed. This long shelf life allows families to prepare for emergencies, whether those emergencies are personal financial struggles, natural disasters, or broader supply disruptions like the one emerging in 2026. Another major advantage of canned food is stability in nutrition. Many people underestimate how much nutritional value is preserved through the canning process. Foods are often preserved at peak ripeness, meaning they retain vitamins and minerals that would otherwise degrade quickly in fresh produce. Beans provide protein and fiber, canned fish offers omega-3 fatty acids and protein, and vegetables retain essential nutrients like potassium and vitamin A. While fresh food is often considered superior, canned food provides a reliable nutritional baseline when fresh options are unavailable or unaffordable. Canned foods are also extremely practical in terms of accessibility. They do not require refrigeration, which is crucial in areas where electricity supply is unreliable or expensive. They are also ready to use, often requiring no preparation beyond opening the can. In crisis situations, this simplicity becomes extremely important. During natural disasters, power outages, or displacement events, people may not have access to cooking facilities or clean water. In such cases, canned foods can be eaten directly, providing immediate sustenance without additional resources. Affordability is another key factor that makes canned food important in times of hunger. Even when prices rise due to shortages, canned goods often remain more cost-effective over time compared to fresh or frozen alternatives. Fresh produce can spoil quickly, leading to waste, while canned foods can be stored for long periods without loss. This reduces overall household food waste and helps families stretch limited budgets. For low-income populations especially, canned foods often serve as a bridge between scarcity and stability. Canned food also plays a critical role in humanitarian aid systems. Relief organizations depend on canned goods because they are durable, easy to transport, and safe to distribute in large quantities. In disaster zones where infrastructure is damaged, refrigeration and supply chains may not function. Canned foods can be stored in warehouses, transported over long distances, and delivered to affected populations without risk of spoilage. This makes them one of the most important tools in emergency response efforts around the world. Beyond physical survival, canned foods also provide a psychological sense of security. Having a pantry stocked with shelf-stable items reduces anxiety during uncertain times. People feel more prepared and less vulnerable when they know they have food reserves at home. This sense of preparedness can reduce panic buying behavior and help stabilize local markets. In times of economic stress, psychological stability is almost as important as physical supply. However, the 2026 canned food shortage highlights an important lesson. Even the most reliable systems are vulnerable when multiple pressures combine. Rising material costs, agricultural instability, transportation challenges, and increased demand have all converged at the same time. No single factor is responsible, but together they create a situation where supply struggles to keep pace with consumption. This situation may encourage long-term changes in how food systems are managed. Governments and industries may begin investing more in localized production to reduce dependency on global supply chains. There may also be increased interest in alternative preservation methods such as freeze-drying or improved refrigeration technologies. Households may also rethink how they store food, diversifying beyond canned goods to reduce reliance on a single category. In some ways, the shortage is not just a problem, but also a warning signal. It reveals how interconnected global systems have become, and how quickly everyday products can be affected by distant events. Something as simple as a can of beans depends on mining operations, factory production lines, agricultural cycles, fuel prices, shipping routes, and consumer behavior. When even a few of these elements become unstable, the effects are felt widely. Still, canned foods remain one of the strongest foundations of food security in modern life. Even in shortage conditions, they continue to provide essential nutrition, long shelf life, and accessibility for millions of people. The current situation does not eliminate their importance. Instead, it highlights just how valuable they are when stability is threatened. In the end, the canned food shortage of 2026 is not only about empty shelves or rising prices. It is about understanding the fragile balance behind global food systems and recognizing the importance of preparedness. Canned foods have always been more than convenience items. They are a form of resilience, a buffer against uncertainty, and a quiet form of security that becomes most visible when the system around them begins to